The cell was cold and dark, sat on the metal floor with his back against the wall. His hands were locked in front of him by glowing blue cuffs that made a soft humming sound. He had been sitting like this for hours now, maybe days. It was hard to tell time in this place. The guards outside his cell were tall beings with silver skin and black eyes. They were called, and they ruled this part of the galaxy. Their empire was huge and powerful. They looked at like he was an insect, something small and worthless that had crawled into their perfect world. Was human, and humans were not welcome here. He had been caught 3 days ago while flying a small ship through space. His ship was full of medicine and food. He was trying to bring these things to a planet that they had blocked off from the rest of the galaxy. The people on that planet were sick and hungry, wanted to help them. But they did not care about helping anyone. They only cared about their rules and their power, so they caught him and put him in this cell. The door of the cell opened with a sharp hissing sound, looked up slowly. She walked in like a storm. Her silver skin was brighter than the guards outside, almost like it was glowing. Her eyes were not black like theirs, but a deep purple color that burned with anger. She wore armor made of some dark metal that fit her body perfectly. Behind her, 2 guards followed, their weapons ready. This was Princess of the 3rd Imperial House. She was the daughter of the Emperor. She was the future ruler of the Empire, and she looked like she wanted to kill him. "You," she said, her voice sharp and cold, "you are the human who broke through our blockade." Did not answer, he just looked at her. "Do you understand what you have done?" Stepped closer to him, her purple eyes narrowed. "You have broken our laws, you have helped our enemies, you have insulted the Empire itself." Still said nothing. He had learned a long time ago that silence was often the best response. "Speak," shouted, her voice echoed in the small cell. "Tell me who sent you, tell me why you are here. Beg for your life, human." Looked at her calmly. His face was bruised and there was dried blood on his lip from when the guards had hit him, but his eyes were steady. There was no fear in them. This made even more angry. "Do you think you are brave?" She stepped so close that could see his reflection in her dark armor. "Do you think your silence makes you strong? You are nothing. Your species is nothing. You are insects crawling in the dirt while we rule the stars." She raised her hand. Energy began to crackle between her fingers, purple and bright. It was some kind of power that her people had, a way to hurt others without touching them. "I will tear the information from your mind," said. Her voice was quieter now but more dangerous. "I will break you apart piece by piece until you tell me everything I want to know. I will." The word was very soft, almost a whisper, but it stopped like she had been hit. Her hand dropped. The energy disappeared. Her purple eyes went wide, and for a moment she looked like a scared child instead of a powerful princess. "What did you say?" Her voice was barely a sound. Lifted his head fully. His eyes met hers, and there was something in them now, something old and deep and impossible. "I said," he repeated, "the name of the woman who saved your grandmother's life, the name that your empire erased from every record and every database, the name that your people have been forbidden to speak for 300 years. The guards behind looked at each other with confusion and fear. They did not understand what was happening, but they could feel that something had changed in the room. Took a step backward, her hands were shaking. "That is impossible," she whispered. "How could you know that name? That information is sealed. It is hidden. No one outside the royal family even knows that name exists." "I know it," said simply, "because she was my wife." Silence filled the cell. It was so quiet that could hear his own heartbeat. "That makes no sense," shook her head. "The one called, that name. She lived 300 years ago. Humans do not live that long. No species lives that long except—" She stopped herself. Her eyes went even wider. "Except those who have traveled through the void gates," finished for her. Now looked truly afraid. The void gates were the biggest secret of the Empire. They were ancient doors scattered across the galaxy that could bend space and time. Very few people knew they existed. Even fewer knew how to use them. To speak of them was against the law. "You are lying," said, but her voice had lost its power. "You must be lying." "Your grandmother was dying," continued. He spoke slowly, like he was telling a story he had told many times before. "There was a terrible sickness on her planet. It had spread to the royal family. Every doctor and healer in the Empire had tried to save her, but they all failed. And then a human woman walked into the palace. She carried nothing but a small bag and a smile, and she saved them all." His back was against the wall now. She had nowhere else to go. "She cured the sickness," said. "Not just for your grandmother, but for the whole planet. Millions of people who would have died were saved because of her. And she asked for nothing in return, nothing except one thing." "What?" His voice was a whisper. "She asked that her name be forgotten." Looked down at his bound hands for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was soft and sad. "She did not want to be famous. She did not want statues or songs or prayers. She just wanted to help people and then move on to help more people. That was always who she was." He looked back up at. "We traveled together through the void gates for many years, decades, centuries if you count it differently, but the gates are not perfect. They are dangerous and hard to control. One day we went through together, but we came out in different places, different times. I have been searching for her ever since." Found her voice again. "If what you say is true, then she died long ago. 300 years is. She is not dead." Those three words hit like a physical blow. "The void gates do not just move people through space," said. "They move them through time as well. Your empire did not kill her. They could not kill her because she was too famous, too loved by the common people. So instead, they did something worse." He stood up slowly. Even with his hands bound, even covered in bruises and blood, there was something powerful about him now. Something that made the guards reach for their weapons. "They imprisoned her. Somewhere in your empire, in your most secret and secure place, my wife is still alive, frozen in time, waiting." His eyes burned into us. "And I am going to get her back." Stared at him for a long moment. Her mind was racing with thoughts and questions and fears. Everything she had been taught about humans was telling her that this was impossible, that this man was lying or crazy or both. But there was something in his eyes that she could not ignore, something that told her he was speaking the truth. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why are you telling me this? I could have you killed with a single word." Smiled. It was a tired smile, full of sadness and hope mixed together. "Because I need your help, princess. And because I believe that somewhere inside you there is a part of your grandmother, the part that was kind, the part that was saved by a human woman with nothing but a bag and a smile." He held out his bound hands toward her. "Help me find her. Help me bring her home, and I will tell you things about your empire that will change everything." The cell was quiet again. Looked at the human before her, this impossible man who spoke of impossible things. She should call the guards. She should have him killed. She should walk away and forget this ever happened. But she did not do any of those things. Instead, she reached for her communicator and turned it off. "Tell me everything," she said. They sat in a different room now. It was a small meeting room on the ship, away from the guards and cameras. Princess had taken here herself. She told the guards he was her prisoner and she would question him alone. They did not argue with her. No one argued with the princess. Still had the energy cuffs on his wrists, but they did not bother him. He had worn worse things in his long life. He sat across the table from and watched her carefully. She was young for her kind, maybe only 100 years old. To humans, that was very old. She was barely an adult. "Start from the beginning," said. Her voice was calmer now, but could see that her hands were still shaking slightly. "Tell me everything about this woman. Tell me how you know things that are impossible to know." Nodded slowly. "I will. But first, you need to understand something about humans. We are not like your people. We do not live for hundreds of years. We do not have great powers or advanced technology. Most of us live short lives and die without ever leaving our home planet. I know this, said impatiently. Humans are one of the weaker species in the galaxy. That is why the Empire does not see you as a threat. Yes, but sometimes something happens that changes a human, something that makes them different from all the others. Paused. The void gates are one of those things. Leaned forward. The void gates were her people's greatest secret. She had only seen one in her entire life, deep beneath the palace. Her father had shown it to her when she was young and told her never to speak of it. "How do you know about the gates?" she asked. "Because I have traveled through them, many times, and I discovered them together many years ago. Back then I was just a regular human, a doctor like her. We worked together on Earth, helping people who were sick and poor. We were happy." His eyes grew distant, looking at something far away that could not see. "Then one day we found something strange, a door made of black stone hidden in the mountains. It had symbols on it that we could not read. When we touched it, it opened, and we stepped through." "Into where?" asked quietly. "Into everything. The gates connect all of time and space. When you go through one, you might come out on the other side of the galaxy, or you might come out 1,000 years in the past, or 1,000 years in the future. There is no way to control it, not completely." Held up his bound hands. "This is why I am still alive after so many centuries. The gates change you. They make you part of time itself. You stop aging in the normal way. You move through the years like a stone skipping across water." His mind was struggling to accept what she was hearing. It went against everything she had been taught. The belief that they were the masters of the void gates, that only their royal bloodline could use them safely. But here was a human, an ordinary human, who claimed to have done the same thing. "And I traveled together for many years," continued. "We saw things that most people could never imagine, worlds that were born and worlds that died, species that rose to greatness and species that destroyed themselves, and everywhere we went wanted to help. She could not see suffering without trying to stop it. That is how she came to your empire. She heard about a terrible sickness that was killing millions of people. The Plague of Seven, your people called it. It had spread to the royal family. Your grandmother, the Empress, was dying." Felt a strange feeling in her chest. Her grandmother had died when was still young, but she remembered her clearly. A kind old woman with gentle hands and sad eyes. She had told stories before bed, stories about the old days when things were different. "Grandmother never talked about how she was cured," said slowly. "I asked her once, and she just smiled and changed the subject. Because she was forbidden to talk about it. Your council of elders made it a crime to speak of what happened. They erased all records of. They destroyed every image and every document. They made it so that no one would ever know that a human saved the empire." "Why?" asked. "Why would they do that?" "Because they were afraid." His voice was hard now. "The council had spent centuries telling your people that humans were worthless, that we were weak and stupid and not worth thinking about. But then a human woman walked into the palace and did something that all of your great doctors and healers could not do. She cured the incurable. She saved the Empress herself." He shook his head. That was dangerous to them. If people knew that a human could do such things, they might start to think differently. They might start to question the council. So the council did what powerful people always do when they are afraid. They buried the truth. Sat back in her chair. Her whole body felt heavy. She had grown up believing that the Empire was good and right, that her people were the protectors of the galaxy. But now she was hearing something very different. "What happened to her?" she asked. "Too." His face changed. The calm mask he had been wearing cracked and saw real pain underneath. "The council could not kill her. Too many common people had seen what she did. There would have been questions, maybe even rebellion. So they waited. They pretended to honor her. They gave her rooms in the palace and servants and anything she asked for, but did not want any of those things. She wanted to leave to continue helping other planets, and when she tried to go, they stopped her. They said it was for her protection. They said there were people who wanted to hurt her. It was a prison, whispered, a golden prison. Yes, and then one night they came for her. The council sent their secret guards to her room. They took her while she slept and brought her to a hidden place deep beneath the palace, and they put her in stasis. Knew about stasis technology. It was used to keep people frozen in time, not dead but not alive either. The sometimes used it to preserve their greatest criminals until a proper punishment could be decided. But she had never heard of it being used on an innocent person. She has been there ever since, said. 300 years frozen and forgotten. The council thought they had solved their problem. They thought that by erasing her name, they could erase what she meant. But you found out, said. It took me a long time. The gates separated us, and I spent decades just trying to find the right time and place again. When I finally reached your empire, I had to start from nothing. Every record of her was gone. Every person who remembered her was dead or too afraid to speak. He leaned forward, and his eyes locked onto hers. But I am very patient, princess, and I loved her more than anything in the universe. I searched for clues in 100 different places. I talked to old servants and read forgotten books and followed trails that were 300 years cold. And finally, I found the truth. She is here, said. It was not a question. Yes, somewhere in the most secure part of your empire, a place called the Forbidden Archive. That is where they keep all the things they want the galaxy to forget. Knew about the Forbidden Archive. She had heard whispers of it since she was a child. It was supposed to be just a storage place for old records and documents. But now she wondered what else was hidden there. And you were caught trying to reach her, she said. No, I was caught trying to keep her legacy alive, smiled sadly. The planets I was bringing supplies to, the ones your empire has been blockading and starving, they were colonies that established. Places where she built hospitals and schools and homes for refugees. Your council has been destroying them one by one. Why, what is the point of destroying hospitals? Because they remind people. Every time someone sees those hospitals, they might ask who built them, and that might lead to questions, and questions might lead to the truth, shook his head. Your council is thorough, princess. They do not just erase people, they erase everything those people ever touched. Stood up suddenly. She walked to the small window in the room and looked out at the stars. Her mind was full of thoughts that felt too big to hold. She had been raised to be the next ruler of the empire. She had been taught that her duty was to protect her people and uphold the traditions of her ancestors. But what if those traditions were built on lies? What if the empire she loved was responsible for terrible things? Why are you telling me this? She asked without turning around. I could report everything you have said. I could have you executed for speaking of the void gates. You could, agreed, but you will not. How do you know? Because I can see the truth in your eyes, princess. You are not like the council. You care about right and wrong. And now that you know the truth, you cannot simply forget it. Was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was very small. What do you want from me? I want you to help me find her. I want you to use your power and your access to open the doors that I cannot open. I want you to help me bring home. And then what? Stood up slowly. Even with his hands bound and his face bruised, he looked strong and sure. And then we will tell the galaxy the truth. About the council. About all the lies that have been hiding in the dark for 300 years. He met her eyes. We will change everything, princess, if you are brave enough to try. Looked at this strange human, this impossible man who had lived for centuries and crossed the stars to find his lost wife. She thought about her grandmother, who had been saved by a human healer. She thought about the council, who had turned that miracle into a crime. And she made her choice. "I will help you," she said, "but not just to find your wife. I will help you because this is wrong, and because I cannot be the ruler of an empire that is built on lies." She reached out and pressed her thumb against energy cuffs. They clicked and fell away from his wrists. "Now," she said, "let us find the Forbidden Archive." The Imperial Palace was the largest building had ever seen. It rose from the surface of the planet like a mountain made of glass and silver metal. Millions of people lived and worked inside its walls, and somewhere deep beneath it, hidden from everyone, was the Forbidden Archive. Princess led through endless corridors and hallways. She had given him new clothes that made him look like a servant. No one looked twice at servants in the palace. They were invisible, just part of the background. "The archive is 7 levels below the main palace," whispered as they walked. "Very few people even know it exists. The entrance is guarded by the council's private soldiers." "Can you get past them?" asked. "I am the princess. I can go anywhere I want." She paused. "But bringing you with me will be harder. If anyone asks, you are my personal servant. Do not speak unless I tell you to." Nodded. He had played many roles in his long life. Being a quiet servant was easy. They reached a large elevator made of black metal, pressed her hand against a panel on the wall, and it glowed purple as it read her royal blood. The doors opened, and they stepped inside. The elevator went down for a long time, counted the seconds in his head. They were going very deep indeed. When the doors opened again, they were in a dark corridor lit by soft blue lights. 2 guards stood at the far end, wearing armor that was different from the regular soldiers. These were the council's personal guards, the most loyal and dangerous warriors in the empire. "Your Highness," one of the guards bowed his head, "we were not told you would be visiting." "I do not need to tell anyone where I go," said coldly. "Step aside." The guard hesitated. "The council has ordered that no one may enter without." "I am the daughter of the emperor. I am the future ruler of this empire." His voice was like ice. "Are you telling me that the council's orders are more important than my commands?" The guard's face showed fear. Understood why. To refuse a royal order was a serious crime, but so was disobeying the council. "Of course not, Your Highness," the guard finally said. He stepped aside and the other guard did the same. "Please forgive me." Walked past them without another word. Followed close behind, keeping his head down like a proper servant. Beyond the guards was a massive door made of the same black stone as the void gates. Pressed her hand against it, and it slowly swung open. They stepped through into darkness. The archive was not what it expected. He had thought it would be full of books and papers and old documents. Instead, it was a huge room filled with glowing containers of all sizes. Some were small enough to hold in your hand. Others were as big as houses. Each one hummed softly with energy. "Stasis pods," whispered. Her voice was full of horror. "There must be hundreds of them." Walked among the pods, looking at the small labels on each one. Some had names, others just had numbers. All of them contained people who had been frozen and forgotten. "Political prisoners," he said quietly. "Scientists who asked the wrong questions. Writers who wrote the wrong words. Anyone who threatened the council's power." Looked like she might be sick. "I did not know. I swear I did not know about any of this." "I believe you." Kept walking, reading each label carefully. The council kept this hidden from everyone, even the royal family. They did not want anyone to know how they really kept control of the empire. "My father." "Your father probably does not know either. The council has been doing this for a very long time. They are good at keeping secrets." They searched the archive for what felt like hours. There were so many pods, so many frozen people. Felt his heart growing heavier with each one he passed. All these lives, stolen and hidden away like they meant nothing. Then he saw her. She was in a pod at the very back of the room, away from all the others. The pod was older than the rest, covered in a thin layer of dust. The label had faded so much that it was hard to read, but did not need to read it. He would know her face anywhere. He breathed. He pressed his hand against the cold glass of the pod. Through the frost, he could see her face. She looked exactly as he remembered her, dark hair with a few strands of gray, small lines around her eyes from years of smiling, lips that were always ready to laugh or speak words of comfort. She looked peaceful, like she was just sleeping, but knew the truth. She had been trapped in this frozen sleep for 300 years, alone in the dark. "I found you," he whispered. Tears were falling from his eyes now, but he did not care. "After all this time, I finally found you." Came up behind him. She looked at the woman in the pod and felt something strange in her chest. This was the person who had saved her grandmother. This was the person whose name had been erased from history, and she looked so ordinary, so human. "She is beautiful," said softly. "She is everything," wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "And now I need to get her out of here." He started looking at the controls on the side of the pod. They were old but still working. The display showed that was alive and healthy, just frozen in time. "If I can figure out how to turn off the stasis, she should wake up in a few hours," he said. "The process is slow because the body needs time to adjust." "Wait," grabbed his arm. "If you turn off the stasis, every alarm in the palace will go off. The council will know instantly. They will send every soldier they have. Then we will have to fight. You cannot fight an entire army. I have done harder things for her," looked at with calm determination. "I did not spend 300 years searching just to stop now. There has to be another way." His mind was racing. She was thinking about everything she knew, everything she could do, and then an idea came to her. "I am the princess," she said slowly. "I have authority over almost everyone in the empire. If I declare that this woman is under my protection, the soldiers cannot touch her. The council will overrule you. Not if I move faster than them." Eyes were bright with a new fire. "Not if I go to my father and tell him everything. Not if I make this public before the council can stop me." Stared at her. "You would do that. You would challenge the council for a human you just met." "I would challenge the council because this is wrong." Looked around at all the frozen people in their pods. "All of this is wrong. I cannot be the ruler of an empire that does these things. I would rather burn it all down than let this continue." Before could respond, they heard footsteps behind them. Both of them spun around, ready to fight. But it was not a guard who stepped out of the shadows. It was a young woman with pale skin and dark hair. She was human, and she was smiling. Said with surprise and relief, "Hello, father." The woman called walked toward them casually, like she was taking a walk in a garden instead of sneaking into the most secret place in the empire. "I told you I would find a way in." His hand went to her weapon. "Who is this? How did she get in here?" "It is all right," held up a hand. "This is my daughter, well, my adopted daughter, and I found her on a dying world when she was a child. She has been helping me search for years." Nodded too. "Nice to meet you, Your Highness. Thank you for not killing my father. I heard you were quite angry at first." Did not know what to say. Everything was happening so fast. "How did you get past the guards?" asked. "I have my ways." Pulled out a small device from her pocket. "I also brought something that might help. This will block the alarm signal from the stasis pod for about 30 minutes. It should give us enough time to get her out of the palace." "That is not enough time," said. "Even if the alarms do not sound, the guards saw us come in. They will report it to the council." "Then we need a bigger plan." Looked at her father, then at the princess. "I heard what you said about challenging the council. Do you really mean it?" "Yes," his voice was steady. "I meant every word." "Good, because I think I know how we can do this, but it will be dangerous, and it will change everything." She told them her plan. It took several minutes, and by the time she was finished, both and were staring at her with wide eyes. "That is crazy," said. "Yes," agreed. "But so is freezing people for 300 years because you are afraid of the truth. Sometimes crazy is the only answer." He looked at her. Then they both looked at, sleeping peacefully in her frozen prison. "Let us do it," said. Smiled and pressed a button on her device. The pod began to hum with a new sound, and the frost on the glass started to melt. 30 minutes, she said. Let us change the galaxy. The Imperial throne room was the heart of the Empire. It was a massive hall with walls made of crystal that glowed with soft light. The ceiling was so high that clouds sometimes formed inside. At one end sat the Emperor's throne, carved from a single piece of black stone that was older than the Empire itself. Today, the throne room was full. Princess had called an emergency gathering. She had used her royal authority to summon the Council of Elders, the military leaders, and hundreds of other important people from across the Empire. They all stood in confused groups, whispering to each other about why they had been called. At the front of the room, just below the empty throne, stood a stasis pod. It was covered with a cloth so no one could see what was inside. Guards surrounded it on all sides. Emperor entered through a side door. He was old, even with silver skin that had faded to almost white. His movements were slow and careful. He had been sick for many years, and the council had been ruling in his name for a long time. "Daughter," he said as he took his seat on the throne, "what is the meaning of this? The council tells me you have been acting strangely." "The council tells you many things, father," stood straight and proud before him. "Not all of them are true." The 12 members of the council sat in their special seats below the throne. Their leader, Counselor, was the oldest and most powerful of them all. His black eyes watched with cold anger. "Your Highness," said, his voice smooth as poison, "perhaps you should explain what you have brought before us. This is highly irregular." "Yes, it is," looked at the crowd. Thousands of eyes were watching her. "What I am about to show you is something that the Council has hidden for 300 years. It is something that will change the way you see our empire and our history." She gestured, and the guards removed the cloth from the stasis pod. Gasps filled the room. Some people moved closer to see, others stepped back in fear. Through the clear glass of the pod, everyone could see a human woman. She was not quite awake yet, but her eyes were starting to move behind their lids. Her chest was rising and falling with slow breaths. "This is a human," Counselor said loudly. "Why have you brought a human into the sacred throne room? This is an insult to the Empire." "This is not just any human." His voice rang through the hall. "This is the woman who saved my grandmother's life 300 years ago. This is the woman who cured the plague of 7 when all of our doctors had failed. And this is the woman that the council imprisoned and erased from history." The whispers grew louder. People were looking at the council with new eyes. Lies stood up from his seat. "This is all lies. The princess has clearly lost her mind. She has been tricked by human spies." "Then explain this," held up a data crystal. "This is a copy of the sealed records from the Forbidden Archive. It contains everything. The reports from 300 years ago, the orders to erase her name, the list of every person who was imprisoned for knowing the truth." She threw the crystal onto the floor in front of the council. "I found the archive, Counselor. I saw what is hidden there. Hundreds of innocent people, frozen in stasis because they knew things you wanted to keep secret. You have been lying to us for centuries." The throne room erupted in noise. Some people were shouting in anger. Others were crying out in shock. The council members were all talking at once, trying to explain, trying to deny. But Emperor raised his hand, and silence fell. "Daughter," he said slowly, "these are serious accusations. Do you have proof beyond this crystal?" "I have witnesses," pointed to the back of the room. The crowd parted and 2 humans walked forward. and came to stand beside. They were calm and steady, even with thousands of alien eyes staring at them. "This is," said, "he is the husband of the woman in this pod. He has spent 300 years searching for her, and this is his daughter. They have traveled through the void gates themselves. They know secrets that the Council has tried to hide." "The void gates," the Emperor leaned forward. "How do humans know about the void gates?" "Because the gates belong to no one," said. His voice was steady and clear. "They were here before your empire. They will be here after your empire is gone. Anyone can use them if they find them. And I discovered one on our home planet many centuries ago." "Father, listen to me," said. "This woman saved our family. She saved millions of our people. And in return, the Council locked her away and pretended she never existed. They did this because they were afraid. Because if people knew that a human could do such things, it would make the Council look weak." Emperor was silent for a long moment. His eyes moved from his daughter to the Council to the stasis pod, where the human woman was slowly waking up. Then he spoke. "Counselor, is what my daughter says true?" His face was twisted with anger and fear. "Your Majesty, the princess does not understand. We did what we had to do to protect the Empire. The people needed to believe that we were strong, that we did not need help from lesser species. It was for the good of everyone." "You imprisoned an innocent woman for 300 years, the Emperor said. "You lied to my mother and to me. You have been ruling in secret while I was sick and weak." He stood up from his throne. It was the first time he had stood without help in many years. "This is not what the Empire was meant to be." At that moment the stasis pod made a soft sound. The glass door slowly opened and woke up. She blinked her eyes against the bright lights. Her body was stiff and weak from 3 centuries of sleep. But when she saw standing nearby, a smile spread across her face. She whispered, her voice was rough but full of love, "You found me." Rushed to her side. He caught her as she tried to stand, holding her gently in his arms. "I found you," he said. There were tears on his face. "I will always find you." Joined them, putting her arms around both of her parents. For a moment, the 3 of them were the only people in the universe. Then looked up at the room around her, at the thousands of staring at her, at the Emperor on his throne, at the Council members who had locked her away. "Hello," she said. Her voice was weak, but it carried across the silent room. "I seem to have slept for a very long time." Emperor stepped down from his throne. He walked slowly across the floor until he stood before the human woman. Then, to everyone's shock, he bowed. "My grandmother spoke of you," he said. "In her final days, when she was old and tired, she whispered your name. She said you were the kindest person she had ever met. She said she was sorry for what happened to you." His eyes filled with tears. "She was a good woman. She tried to help me when they came for me. She was too weak to stop them, but she tried." "Then let me make this right." The Emperor turned to face his council. "By my authority as ruler of the Empire, I order the immediate release of everyone in the Forbidden Archive. I order a full investigation of the Council's actions, and I declare that this woman is an honored guest of the Empire." Counselor made one final desperate attempt. He pulled a weapon from his robes and pointed it at. "This is treason," he screamed. "The Council has protected this empire for 1,000 years. We will not let some sick old man and his foolish daughter destroy everything." But before he could fire, moved. She was faster than anyone expected. In one smooth motion, she knocked the weapon from his hand and pinned him to the ground. "Bad idea," she said calmly. Guards rushed forward to take away. The other council members were quickly surrounded as well. They did not resist. Their power was broken. Emperor looked at his daughter with pride in his eyes. "You have done well. You have shown more courage than I have shown in many years." He took a deep breath. "I am old and tired. The sickness has taken too much from me. I think it is time for new leadership." He removed the crown from his head and held it out to her. Will you take this burden? Will you lead our people into a new age? Looked at the crown. She looked at her father. She looked at the humans who had helped her see the truth. I will, she said, but not alone. I will need advisors who believe in honesty and justice. I will need friends from all species, not just our own. She took the crown and placed it on her head. The old empire is dead, she declared to the watching crowd. A new empire begins today, one built on truth instead of lies, one that helps others instead of fearing them, one that remembers its history instead of erasing it. She turned to, who was still leaning against for support. And it begins with honoring the woman who should have been honored 300 years ago. Smiled. It was the same smile she had worn when she first walked into the palace so long ago. The same smile that had given hope to millions of dying people. Thank you, Your Majesty, she said, but I did not save your grandmother for honor or rewards. I saved her because she needed help. That is all I have ever wanted to do. She looked then at the young empress who had freed her. And now, I think there are many more people who need help, so perhaps we should get started. 1 year had passed since the day woke up in the throne room. The galaxy was different now. The old council was gone, its members facing justice for their crimes. The forbidden archive had been opened, and all the frozen prisoners had been freed. Some of them had families who still remembered them. Others had to start their lives all over again, but at least they were free. Empress ruled with a new kind of strength. She opened the borders of the empire to species that had been kept out for centuries. She built new hospitals and schools on the planets that had been starving under the blockade. She told the truth about the empire's past, even when it was ugly and painful. And she did not do it alone. And traveled with her for the first few months, helping to fix what had been broken. They visited the colonies that had built 300 years ago. They met the descendants of people she had saved. They saw her legacy everywhere they went. I cannot believe all of this came from you, said one day. They were standing on a green planet that had turned into a refuge for the sick. Now it was a thriving world with millions of people. One person did all of this. One person started it, said, but it took many people to keep it going. That is how it always works. You plant a seed and others help it grow. Took her hand. You planted a lot of seeds. We planted them together. She smiled at him. I could not have done any of it without you. They stayed on that planet for a while, was still recovering from her long sleep, and she needed time to rest, was happy to stay by her side. After 300 years of searching, he was not going to leave her again. But the galaxy did not let them rest for long. News of what had happened in the Empire spread to every corner of space, and with it spread the name that had been hidden for so long. At first, it was just whispers, stories told in bars and trading posts about the human healer who had saved an empire. Then the stories grew bigger. People began to add details that were not true, making her sound like a god instead of a regular person. They are saying you could bring the dead back to life, said one evening, reading from a news screen, and that you are 1,000 years old, and that you can travel through walls. I am only 642 years old, said with a laugh, and I have never walked through a wall in my life. But even as she joked, she felt worried. She had never wanted to be famous. She had asked for her name to be forgotten because she knew what happened when people were turned into legends. They stopped being seen as people. They became symbols, ideas, things to fight over. Maybe we should leave, she said to that night. Find a quiet place somewhere. Let the galaxy forget about us. Was quiet for a moment, then he shook his head. I spent 300 years looking for you, he said. I saw what happened when you were forgotten. The colonies died. The hospitals closed. The people you saved had no one to remember them. He took her hands in his. Your name has power, not because you are special or magic, but because you showed people what was possible. You showed them that one person could make a difference. If you hide again, If you let yourself be forgotten again, that power will be lost. Looked into his eyes. He was right and she knew it, but it was hard. She had never wanted this burden. I am tired, she whispered. I have been tired for a very long time. I know, he pulled her close. But you do not have to carry this alone. You have me. You have, and all the people who believe in what you did. He kissed her forehead. Rest when you need to rest, but do not run away. The galaxy needs people who care, now more than ever. Thought about his words for many days. She thought about her long life, about all the people she had helped and all the people she had lost. She thought about the years ahead and what she wanted to do with them. Finally, she made her choice. She did not become a leader or a queen or a general. She did not build an army or a government. Instead, she did what she had always done. She helped people. She traveled to planets where there was sickness and suffering. She trained new doctors and nurses. She built small clinics in poor villages and taught people how to take care of each other. She did not ask for payment or praise. She just showed up, did the work, and moved on to the next place that needed her. Went with her, of course. So did. They were a family, strange and unusual but full of love. Wherever they went, they left things a little bit better than they had found them. Years passed, then decades, then centuries. The void gates kept them moving through time, sometimes forward and sometimes back. They saw empires rise and fall. They met species that had just discovered fire and species that were preparing to leave the galaxy entirely. Through it all kept helping, and through it all her name kept spreading. It was not the fame she had feared. It was something different, something gentler. Her name became a promise, a symbol of hope for people who had none. When children were sick, their parents would tell them stories about to help them feel brave. When villages were struggling, people would remember her example and try a little harder. She was not a god. She was not a legend. She was just proof that kindness mattered, that one person could make a difference, that the universe was not as cold and empty as it sometimes seemed. One day, long after the events in the Empire had become ancient history and found themselves on a small planet in the outer rim, it was a beautiful world, covered in gardens that bloomed in every color. They were old now, even by the strange standards of Void Gate travelers. Their bodies were tired. Their adventures were behind them. I think this is a good place to stop, said. She was looking at a sunset that painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. Are you sure? Asked. I am sure. She leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. We have done enough. It is time to let others carry the work forward. Nodded, he understood. They had been running for so long, helping so many people, that they had almost forgotten what it meant to be still. We'll keep going, he said. She is strong, stronger than both of us. I know, smiled. Their daughter was out there somewhere, still traveling, still helping, still carrying the lessons they had taught her. She will do great things. They sat together and watched the stars come out. The same stars they had traveled through for centuries. The same stars that would keep shining long after they were gone. Do you have any regrets? Asked quietly. Thought about it. He thought about the long years of searching, the pain and loneliness, the moments when he had almost given up. Then he thought about finding her again, about the life they had built together. No, he said, not one. Closed her eyes and smiled. Far away, on 100 different worlds, children were falling asleep to stories about a human woman who walked between the stars. A woman who carried nothing but a small bag and a smile. A woman who saved an empire and asked for nothing in return. The stories were not always accurate. Some said she could fly. Some said she never died. Some said she was still out there somewhere, ready to appear whenever someone needed help. But the heart of the stories was always the same. Once upon a time, there was a woman who believed that kindness was the most powerful force in the universe. She believed that one person could change everything, and she spent her whole life proving it. Her name was... and the galaxy would never forget.